Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast, and a huge welcome back to a friend of mine. I haven't talked to him in a while. Rick Ungar back here with us. Now, Rick, you're pretty much retired these days, and I feel guilty dragging you back in. Yeah, it's almost like Al Pacino in that Godfather movie that shall never be.
Every time I'm out, they pull me back in.
The only useful line in that entire mess of a movie. Yes.
Yeah, that was not a good movie.
Not a good movie, not at all. So Rick is pretty much retired these days, but he still dips his toes into politics. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Rick Ungar was Michael Steele's partner on a great radio show. I got a chance to guest host on a couple of occasions there. And Rick was the voice from, I don't want to say the left. You were the liberal voice. The left is a different thing. You were the liberal voice, and Michael Steele was a conservative voice. And we've been friends for years now, since we met the first time at CPAC.
That's right.
And we
were
don't
handing out leaflets. Or you were promoting a book, as I recall.
Yeah. I thought maybe we'd met before I started promoting the book, but yeah, I was. There was at least one or two of those that I was really pushing the book, and I'm still pushing it there. But
that's all right.
I don't make any money off of it anymore. I'm trying to recoup Crown Forum's money.
Do you still go to CPAC?
I haven't been since the plague. I was there in 2020.
Interesting.
I was there in 2020, and I just haven't been back. And part of that is the nature of CPAC kind of changed a little bit. It was changed then too, a little bit, and just it didn't seem like the engagement was. There wasn't enough value in the engagement at that point it's a large cost to go to CPAC. I mean, people may not realize that this thing costs either you or your employer up the wazoo, and we have people in town who can go to that thing. So
it's a very different experience now. I haven't gone in years.
Yeah, I haven't been in 3 years. It's not that I'll never go back, but I just hasn't really.
See, I always, in the old days, if you will, I always enjoyed it there. I was a liberal, hanging out with
one liberal.
Well, that's it. I mean, as you know very well, I don't pick my friends by their politics.
Right.
And I've always had a good time at CPAC until I didn't.
Yeah, and yeah. I never had a bad time at CPAC. Even the last one I went to, I had fun at.
Oh, that's good.
It was sort of a diminishing returns sort of thing. And it was harder to justify spending all the money on travel to go there for a couple of days. When again, we've got town hall people in town, they can cover it, they can do the media stuff for it. I may go back at some point. It's just not going to be, it wasn't this year.
Maybe when it's not the Trump convention any longer. That day will come.
And that kind of leads us into what we were going to talk about today, right? Presidential election. So we can argue with each other and throw pushbacks at each other.
You stupid conservative. How's that?
You miserable liberal, you.
We got it kicked off. Okay.
There we go. We covered those bases. Being semi-retired.
You laugh every time you say that.
I laugh because you're still here doing this, when you should be playing golf, but I'm glad you're here doing this. All right, Rick, you're kind of you're not on the outside looking in. I mean, we're all Americans. We're all looking at this. We're all participating in this, but you're pretty much disconnected from the whole daily commentary sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious as to what you see on both parties, right? I mean, we can certainly talk about the Republican Party. I'm a little interested in what you have to say about where the Democrats are right now. Now, I don't take RFK Jr. seriously at all. I know I have some friends who are going, oh, they're censoring RFK Jr. There should be debates. And this are we the same people that made sure that there was no primaries for Donald Trump in 2020? Because I don't know. I seem to recall that. I mean, it's normal, for an incumbent president, for a party to protect an incumbent president by not staging debates, right?
Sure.
But where do you think that sits? I mean, Biden is a pretty unpopular president, whether you think it's justified or not. He's a pretty unpopular president, and you got an economy that is, Biden's out there today defending it, but inflation is at 40-year still, it hit 40-year highs. It still hasn't come back down to the 2% level.
Right.
I mean, do you see him as a solid candidate at his age for a second term, or do you think that Democrats are starting to think about maybe that they need to have a different?
Well, I think he's a solid candidate if he's running against Donald Trump.
Right.
Should somebody else somehow emerge from the Republican field, he's less solid. I think, you just got to be honest and say that. I don't know if DeSantis can beat him or not. I think he has a better chance than Trump does. But there are some other candidates in there in the Republican field that I think definitely could beat him. And you're right. I have to admit that I think it's incongruous that he is such an unpopular president, but he is pretty unpopular. And I think we all know the reasons for that. It's the age thing. And the tendency he has to stumble every time a word comes out of his mouth. That gives people pause as to his mental acuity. So I think this is what's doing him in. I think it's unfair, but I think it's real.
Then we still have, and Rick has a lot more hair than I do. He's just demonstrated that on camera. So thank you for pointing that out, Rick. Oh, how I wish I had that kind of.
You like how I timed that to unnerve you just before your next question? Took the hat off.
Oh my gosh,
that was a plan. I planned that all week.
I know you did, because you're a pro, man. You're a pro at this. And I think you're right. I think that one of the things that, and this is a reason why Biden's been focusing on, the ultra MAGA as messaging. Right. I mean, it's because he feels that he's uniquely positioned to go up against Donald Trump. And if we still have months to go before we're going to know whether,
honestly, I would quibble with that a bit. I don't think that he's uniquely positioned to go up against Donald Trump. I think virtually any Democrat, with the exception of the vice president, could run against Donald Trump and beat him.
I would say in theory, but in practice, pushing a president off of a ticket is going to be damaging, especially
that's tough.
Especially if the person who doesn't ascend to the top of the ticket is the sitting vice president, who was added to that ticket as a sort of a commitment to the progressive, diverse future, and hasn't worked out very well.
Is that your fancy way of saying because she was black?
Because she's a black woman. I mean, I can say it. I can say it fancy. I can say it straight up, because that was what Joe Biden said. I'm going to pick a black woman as my running mate. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
He didn't mince words about it.
And unfortunately, it hasn't gone all that well. Let's just be honest about it. She has not necessarily endeared herself to the American public as our vice president.
No, but I've said this almost ever since he made the choice. He should have picked Val Demings, because even though I don't like Val Demings' positions, she's a much better politician. She's not
only do I agree with you, but I was rather vocal about exactly that back when I was doing my radio show. He absolutely should have picked Val Demings. And, you won't be surprised that I agree more than you do with her positions, but she's got what it takes.
Yes.
She would have been a much better choice. I completely agree. But then I know the vice president. I've known her since California days. She's not a big fan of mine either, I should point out.
I imagine not. I imagine she probably isn't very happy with you.
Well, there's actually a reason for it. You want to hear the story?
Yeah, lay it on me, man.
And is obscenity okay on the podcast?
Yeah. We have Kurt Schlichter doing podcasts at Salem.
Oh, so okay. Yeah.
I figured we got the Schlichter rule in place. We're fine.
Okay. So way back when she was trying to become the Attorney General of California, I was invited to a very small group of people to meet with her. It took place at 8:00 in the morning at an attorney's office. So I went, and Kamala has a tendency to talk a lot. And she's going on and on and on. And all of a sudden, you have a lot of people there who need to be at their office by 9. And everybody's looking at their watch because it's now 10 after 9. And, there's no end in sight. So I raise my hand and I say to her, Kamala, why don't you just say you're going to get up every morning and ask who's fucking the people of California today? She didn't find that funny.
Actually, it's pretty good advice, right?
I thought so. And the rest of the room thought it was pretty good, but she was not appreciative. And she's never let me off the hook for it.
Well, that just goes to show you. It should have been Val Demings.
Yeah, there you go.
But all right. So if, let's say, Republicans look like they're going to nominate somebody else, right? And that's not the way it looks at the moment. We can talk. No. We're going to talk about that next. But let's just say it develops that way. Do you think Democrats are going to? Well, do you think Democrats are going to march up to Joe Biden and say it's time to retire?
No,
no, I don't think so either. But if they did, who would they pick? Because it's not going to be Kamala Harris.
Well, see, that's right, and this all figures into that discussion. There's not like a deep bench of Democratic candidates. There's no Barack Obamas hanging out there waiting for the nod. I think that's part of the thought process here and why Democrats are just praying that it's going to be Donald Trump.
So let me disagree with you a little bit here.
Okay.
I'm not even going to bring up Gavin Newsom. Oh wait, I just did. But I mean, Gavin Newsom's a joke. I mean, he thinks he's a compelling candidate. This guy is lucky he's still in office in California, let alone anyplace else.
No, he's lucky he ever got into office.
Well, yeah, that too. But I'd say if you're seriously looking for somebody who could compete in a national election, if you're a Democrat, I'll give you 3 names right off the bat that at least on paper would work. One is Roy Cooper in North Carolina, who has, again, I'm not endorsing any of these.
Yeah.
Just so people on the podcast understand this, but Roy Cooper in North Carolina, who has been a moderate Democrat in a purple state and who's managed to succeed there doing that. You've got Josh Shapiro, who's new as governor in Pennsylvania, but had, I think, 2 terms as AG and was basically the only statewide candidate with any value whatsoever in 2022. And you've got Jared Polis in Colorado, who I think would be a reach, but again, arguably slightly purple state that he's been governing, I think, at least fairly efficiently. None of these are Black women, though. And again, you run into the same problem that came up in 2020, which was that the party really wanted to have some sort of show of diversity.
Well, Roy Cooper,
yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't have any national profile whatsoever. True. You're right. He's been a pretty successful governor in North Carolina. I do agree with you. He meets the test of moderate Democrat, which I think is useful in presidential elections, but he has no national profile. And I think time has gotten a little bit thin in terms of establishing it. If he wanted it, he needed to start a couple of years ago. Shapiro, I think, is an excellent name to include in there. There's only one potential issue. He's Jewish. And we still don't know if this country is ready for a Jewish president. I'm not sure they are, frankly.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I think
Joe Lieberman would have been a
Joe Lieberman. I don't think he ever could have been president for any number of reasons, not the least of which is, aside from being Jewish, he represented the insurance industry. And boy, would the Republicans have had fun with that.
That's true.
So I don't know that he could be. And Gavin Newsom, he couldn't survive a presidential campaign. If you know as much about Gavin Newsom as I know, then you know that he would be, even in the era of Donald Trump and his rather checkered past, Gavin Newsom would not last.
No. Again, he might be able to, well, I mean, if you got him up against Donald Trump, maybe, but I even think even then it would be a tough role.
Yeah,
What about
I
Jared
mean,
Polis?
who?
Jared Polis.
To be honest, I don't know enough about him, but which again raises the question of national profile.
Well, I'm not sure that America's ready for a gay president either.
Is he gay?
Yes, he's gay.
I didn't even know that.
So. Yeah, he's out. He's gay, and that was part of the campaign in Colorado. And I use Jared Polis as an example of a governor, somebody outside the Beltway, right?
Right.
I don't see anybody in the Senate who could do this. And
well, we have the one person I think you need to throw into the conversation is our Secretary of Transportation. But as you say, you don't think America's ready for a gay president.
I'm not sure they're ready for. I'm not sure they're ready for a president. Ready for somebody as president who was a total failure at Department of Transportation. I mean, that's a cushy gig. And this guy,
I don't know that I agree he was a total failure. I wouldn't say he was a raging success, but then again, there's not a lot to judge people who run the Department of Transportation. I think he's an attractive candidate if, and it's a big if we are ready to elect a gay president. Honestly, I think we're probably more likely to elect a gay president before we elect a Jewish president.
It's interesting. That's interesting. I would have gone the other way around, but yeah. But I think if you're going to elect, I think if you have a major party candidate who's gay, Polis would be the better choice over Buttigieg.
Could be.
Polis actually has a track record of some accomplishment and governance, and so not as mayor, but actually as a governor of a state. All right, so I got to let you have some fun here. I've been making you talk about Democrats this entire time. Now it's time to talk about Republicans. What are your thoughts on the primary in the GOP?
I'm going to start out positive.
Oh, okay.
I am a big fan of Will Hurd.
Okay.
I would vote.
I like him as a representative. I will say
I would vote for Will Hurd. I would vote for a Republican if it's Will Hurd. I got to know him, and I don't think I've known a more principled politician in my life. Will is a straight up guy, very smart, CIA history. I can't believe I'm sitting here on your program making a pitch for a Republican candidate, but I am a big fan of his. I really am. And
a CIA guy to boot. I can't believe you're saying that you're going to vote for a CIA guy, but
he's a straight up guy. I'm telling you. And out of all the members of Congress I've gotten to know over the years doing what I did for a living, there's nobody. There's a couple others, but I always thought he was a special guy.
Well, that being said,
Will Hurd bothered me. He was a Republican.
It bothers some Republicans that he's a Republican too. Although I do like Will. Excuse me, I like him in Congress, not necessarily as a presidential candidate, but I did like him in Congress. And beyond the Will Hurd thing, because I don't think I mean it's possible anybody can catch fire, so I don't want to say it isn't going to happen.
None of the others are. I mean, DeSantis, I think he already caught fire and burnt out. And I don't think that DeSantis is who Americans want. I mean, I think he's gone a lot too far in Florida. And I think Americans are aware of that. I think he scares people.
He just won by 19 points in Florida.
I know, that's Florida. I don't think that he could do the same in Ohio. He'd win in Ohio, but I don't think he'd win by 19 points. I just don't know if he's he's terrible at retail politics. That's number one, and that's not a good thing. Say what you will about Donald Trump, he was pretty good at that.
No, I completely disagree with you on this. Donald Trump was good at rallies.
Yes.
DeSantis is actually building a retail politicking thing, which I find fascinating because it was the subject of my book. But how do you win by 19 points in Florida without being able to do retail politicking? I mean,
run against a candidate that nobody has any interest in whatsoever, who's running as a Democrat, but when he was their governor, he was a Republican. That's how you win by 18 points.
What were the Democrats thinking in nominating? I mean, it was either him or Nikki Fried. And in
Well,
both cases, I was like, what are you guys thinking? There's got to be another. Val Demings would have been a better candidate.
I agree with you.
And
Nevertheless, Nikki Fried would have lost, but she would not have lost by 18 points.
No, I think you're right about that. I think it would have been closer with Nikki Fried. Charlie Crist is a disaster. But I mean, Val Demings lost by 15, but a lot of that had to do with, again, Ron DeSantis.
Yes, it did.
Turning Florida red. So I don't think she would have won anyway. I think it would have been like an 8 or 9 point race because Rubio's popular in Florida anyway. Right. And I think Val Demings was really just doing the Democratic Party a big solid.
Basically, no, you've got it right. You've got it exactly right. I mean, Rubio was not going to lose to any Democrat, as you correctly point out. He's very popular in Florida, and the extent of the defeat was really all about Charlie Crist. Again, not that DeSantis would have lost. He wouldn't have. He would have won pretty much no matter who he ran against, but it would not have been that kind of a shellacking.
No. All right. So you're not impressed by DeSantis. What about Tim Scott?
Actually, Tim Scott's another one who I like.
Yeah.
Tim Scott's another straight up guy. Amazing. All these straight up guys are Republicans. I have major disagreement with Tim Scott on policy, but as a person, and it matters. Character does matter when you're running for president. Tim Scott's probably the best of the bunch.
What I like about Tim Scott is that he is the most inspirational on the stump. He is the most optimistic, right? It's the type of uplifting sort of campaign that you really hope everybody is able to run, but so few actually are.
Yeah, but those days are over for now. Tim Scott is a phenomenal candidate for a bygone era. Now it may come back again someday. Who knows? But for right now, it used to be to run for president, you had to be talking about the future. You had to have an optimistic perspective. That was like a baseline requirement. But not now.
So, all right, now I'm gonna offer you this is a stumper. Are you ready for this one?
I don't know.
All right, this is a stumper. This is my trick question of the day. What possible argument is there for a Mike Pence candidacy in the 2024 primary?
It's not a stumper at all. There is none.
Thank you.
Now, Mike Pence, though, he's another interesting character to me. Because again, while I disagree with Mike Pence about what time it is, he was somebody who I always used to look at and go, you know what? He's a stand-up guy. He's more religious than I am, and so that's okay.
And I think on January 6th, I think he kind of demonstrated.
Well, and he showed it. I agree. Those intervening years were ghastly. Where he was Trump's poodle. And I used to always think, why is he doing this to himself? The other thing that drives me crazy about Mike Pence, and if for no other reason, I couldn't vote for him because I couldn't live with a president who every time he opened his mouth, he sounded like a preacher.
Well, that was Ted Cruz, right? In 2015.
Well, right? Ted Cruz, though, it doesn't, as the sound hits your ear, it doesn't sound like it because you know what a scumbag he really is. I don't think Mike Pence is a scumbag. I really don't. I think he's a decent human being.
I do too. I like Mike Pence. I've met him several times. He's a very personable, engaging, and I think very sincere guy. I think he is a straight up conservative. He acts on his
See, I would have agreed. I would have agreed with everything you just said before the Trump years, because I think he really did himself harm. It was not sincere to have Donald Trump put his drink down on the floor. Mike Pence did it too. That's not sincerity. That's I don't know what to call it, but it was really freaking weird.
Well, and that's the problem with him running in this cycle. If Donald Trump wasn't running, it might make a little bit more sense. We're going to continuity from the Trump years. We're going to continue the Trump policies. But anybody who wants continuity of the Trump years, well, Trump's there. You can vote for Trump.
Right.
If you're not going to vote
Exactly.
for Trump, you're pretty much saying we want to change. And Mike Pence is not a change. It's the reason why Mike Pompeo got out, I think, is the reason why Mike Pompeo got out. It was very clear he wanted to jump in. He just released that book. He'd lost a bunch of weight. He was really preparing to jump in. And at the last minute, he did a Yevgeny Prigozhin. Sorry, I had to just.
Boy, there's a new addition to the English language. He did it. You get me. Yeah, see, he has another problem. Nobody likes him.
Pompeo? Yeah.
Even the Trump people don't like him.
Well, the Trump people don't like him because he was still kind of his own guy to a certain extent.
That's true.
They couldn't afford to get rid of him at that point in time because
he wasn't afraid to send his secretary to the cleaners,
Yeah. Yeah. So
or have his wife send them to the. I mean, he was running that department like a fiefdom.
Yeah, well, there was that too. But I mean, he had the same problem, right? Which is that he represented a return to the Trump years, and Trump's running. So why would you vote for Pompeo? And he was smart enough to realize it. That's
he's the one. If Donald Trump should leave the race for any number of reasons, that's who's going to jump in and try and claim the Trump mantle.
I think that the money's going to line up behind DeSantis. And I think you're wrong about DeSantis. I think DeSantis is building a retail politicking organization.
Maybe. When you're that nasty, it's really hard to hide it when you're out on the campaign trail. And he's a nasty guy. He is not a nice guy.
Oh, this is where we're going to disagree. We're going to battle. I don't think he's a nasty guy.
I do. I think he is a nasty, nasty guy.
All right. Well, Rick, we're kind of out of time.
Oh no. We've just started trashing DeSantis. How can we be out of time?
I haven't even let you trash Trump. So this is going to be my last question for you.
Well, everybody does that.
Okay, well, that's true. But do you think Trump actually makes it to the primaries? I mean, he's got a criminal case that is going to start in December, apparently, at least the Department of Justice. He's got potential charges that are going to be coming at him in July out of Georgia regarding, the election interference allegations from the grand jury in Fulton County. He's got the thing up in New York, which I think is, a BS case, but not the one that Jack Smith filed. That's not a BS case. He's in real serious criminal trouble there. And he's making it worse by going on television and talking about it, which is
just. You think so?
Jeez. Do you think that he actually makes it to?
I do.
I'm not sure he does.
I'll tell you why I do. In this country, we have something called the appellate system, which means that after Donald Trump gets beat on these initial indictments, and he'll appeal it. He'll appeal it. And those appeals will take a very long time, certainly through election season of next year. So he will stay in the primaries. He'll continue to get bumps with the Trump base, which means that he will win the primaries.
So you're predicting he's going to win?
I think he will, yeah. I mean, I think what takes Trump out is a health thing. And I don't wish that on anybody, even Donald Trump. But I think imagine being his age and in the shape he's in and dealing with these kinds of stress factors. Oh, my goodness.
I think he kind of thrives on the stress, though. I think he's the personality type. I think he thrives on it. It's the reason why he likes the chaos.
He may, but I would be willing to bet you his heart doesn't.
Yeah, and he'll be 78.
Yes.
So
not a youngster.
Not a youngster, not at all a youngster. So
no, I think he'll make it through the primaries.
All right, and you think he's going to win?
I think he's going to win the primaries if he's healthy. I don't think he'll win a general election. No.
I tend to agree with you on the general election thing.
Do you think he'll win the primaries?
I am not sure. You take a look at polling right now, and it certainly looks that way. Even state level polling looks that way, and it's very early. And people have not really. I mean, people are committed to concepts more than they are.
Well, I think people are. I think that's generally true, to be sure. But when it comes to Donald Trump, they're committed to him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not sure that you can peel off enough of those voters for somebody else to take the nomination unless it comes down to a two-person race, and
Maybe,
it hasn't, right?
maybe.
Doug Burgum was talking yesterday about how, well, it's a good thing to have all sorts of choices in a primary, which I normally agree with.
Personally, I think Donald Trump is paying each and every one of those candidates. And there's an offer out there to anybody who would also like to join in.
I don't know, man. I'm feeling the Asa excitement, the Asa Hutchinson excitement. Asa with an exclamation point.
I think there's a check sitting out there for you.
I'd take it.
You'd have to run though.
I'd take it. I do the Fred Thompson thing. Just say, hey, I'm just going to be out on my front porch.
If you want to talk to me, come see me. Poor
All right,
Fred Thompson.
We're kind of out of time here, man. I'm just having so much fun.
Dude, we just got started.
Oh, we got to do it again. That's all. That's all that means. We got to do it again. So
there you go.
I know that you're retired and living the high life, man. But is there a link that people can go see Europe to? No. There you go. No. Rick knows how to.
I'm still on Facebook, and I'm still on Twitter, but that's it.
Well, Twitter at Rick Ungar, right?
Yep, Ungar.
Ungar, Rick Ungar.
And I don't check it very often. I have to be honest.
Well, there you go. That's because you're retired and you're smart.
Yes.
All right, Rick.
Hey, by the way, I'm not trying to hold you over time, but I enjoyed the time they gave you on Morning Joe the other day.
Oh yeah, and thank you very much for flying.
You were a feature.
Yeah, I know that I don't agree with Joe and Mika a lot, but I can tell you that they're gracious.
Yes.
I don't need to tell you that, you know that already, but I can tell people who are watching this. Joe and Mika are very gracious people. I enjoyed every single interaction I've ever had with them. They've had me on their set a couple of times. When I was plugging my book, they were kind enough to let me do it twice, which is pretty unusual. So even when I disagree with them, I think
they're okay with that. They're like me. It's all right. They know you're a good guy. Therefore, you're going to be welcomed on their show.
And look, if I was inclined to ever leave my house again, I might go back to New York and try to get on the set again. But
see, I can totally relate to that sentiment.
I am not as ambitious as I used to be. I got here in Texas. Is like, I kind of like this. This is
amazing how that happens, isn't it?
Amazing. It is amazing. When it's minus 30 outside, you're thinking, where can I go to? So
and you're still a punk kid. You've got to be ambitious for a little while longer.
Jeez, I'm 60 years old, man. I'm not that much.
You got lots of time to go.
All right, Rick Ungar at Rick Ungar on Twitter and at the golf course every place. Thanks so much, man. I had a blast, and we got to do this. We got to do this on a more regular basis.
Absolutely, great to hang with you. My love to your better half, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.